Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of What We Are Watching. I'm Joey, joined by the man who was born under a bad sign with a blue moon in his eye. Big TJ, how are you, my friend?
Always good when I'm with you, man. Talking Sopranos is what we're watching right now. So how can you not be excited? I'm wearing pink.
I see that. It looks very good on you, by the way.
Thank you very much. I thought so too, man. It pops.
It does pop. And you're right. We've reached another group of episodes, different in many ways than the last group of episodes that we were doing, but not less than, just different.
It's different.
So let's start it. Our next episode, episode 7, Down Neck. AJ and his friends steal Sacramento wine and turn up drunk at gym class. Tony and Carmela are called into AJ's Catholic school where the psychologist tells them that AJ may have ADD. AJ is tested and determined to be borderline ADD. Tony scornfully rejects this and says AJ is behaving like a normal 13-year-old. Carmela supports his opinion and he walks out. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So with it opening up and you hear these, kids talking amongst themselves, don't backwash. I mean, that's cute stuff, You don't know necessarily what they're doing. But then
Right.
whenever you realize what it is, I mean, it's like I wish some more thought would have been put into it on AJ's part. It's like, look, if you're going to steal the wine, cool. Just don't do it before gym class, my guy. Like that's just the worst time.
Don't do it before gym class or don't drink it before gym class at least. Store it somewhere.
Seriously,
You got a
store it
locker.
somewhere. You got. I mean, come on, man. There's got to be a plan for this. But also, just to go into Tony and Carmela's interaction with the doctor and the head, headmaster or whatever you wanted to call him, the priest, as he's describing ADD, and listing off all these things, we're focused on Tony, and he's essentially saying all these things that describe what we've gained or what we've witnessed in Tony in these first couple of episodes. Being impetuous, oftentimes not thinking before making decisions, like that's our guy,
Mm-hmm.
So um, I thought that was interesting to see that he was going to chalk it off to boys being boys. It's just a regular 13-year-old kid. But, seeing Carmela at the beginning of the episode, she was very into what the doctor was saying. I always knew there was something, but, I could never put my finger on it. So it seems like Tony is trying to defend Anthony's behavior because he recognizes some of himself in his son. And it seems like Carmela is looking for an excuse for that behavior because there needs to be a blame. Like she's still dealing with the reckoning of the sins of the father from the previous episodes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it reminded me of something I witnessed when I was younger. I went with our pastor at the time. I was a teenager, and he would take a group of kids, fourth grade to sixth grade. So, whatever that age is. So, 10 to 12, 10 to 13 ish. And um, we went on a outing one time. He just wanted somebody like closer to the kid's age with
Right.
him. And so I went, and it was a group of boys, and they were just acting just like off the chain, as you could say, and all that.
Right.
And it was really inappropriate stuff. In fact, I usually was not like getting involved. I'm like, guys, you cut it out.
Right.
And later on, he spoke with their parents about it. And I was not in that meeting. I came in at the end of it, and the parents were all like, that's just boys being boys and all that. And it reminded me of that.
Right.
A lot of times while I get, there are a certain amount of adolescent, like, hijinks and horseplay or whatever you call that, excusing bad behavior with boys who are just being boys. Um, but at the same time, the incident with AJ prompts Tony to discuss incidents from his own childhood with
Right.
Dr. Melfi. His mother once threatened to stick a fork in his eye if he did not stop bothering her. He saw his father beat someone up. You could tell he knew what he was doing, Tony says. Later, the same man offered Johnny Boy a chance to move to Reno and escape from his gangster life, and that they would be set. He had a, we're getting, yeah, if he does that, I'll be in charge of this restaurant. I'm completely out. We're set over there. His mother said she would rather smother her children than
And
take
let them
them to
go.
Nevada, than take them to Nevada. And then he saw his father being arrested and felt proud to be his son. This occurred at the time of the 1967 Newark riots. And then later on, I thought Tony was like, he was going to express it all to Dr. Melfi, be open, be honest, and all that, but never say anything. But no, he went full on. Hey, do you remember this family? Oh, they're all out in Nevada. They're billionaires now, and all everything they turned to gold. Ma, yeah, and he calls her on it. We had a chance, and you told Pop you'd rather smother us than go to Nevada.
I don't know what you're talking about. Always
Yeah,
with the dramatics.
always with the dramatics. Yes,
Gotta
and
love Livia, man.
and I was just the parts where Tony was remembering his childhood was what I found most fascinating to me, because not only the way that he looks at his father, you see a father not really spending a lot of time with Tony. The
Right.
person who takes the most interest in Tony is Uncle Junior.
Yep.
When he shows up, hey, did you hear the ball game last night? No, she made me go to sleep. Are you working
Playing
on your,
catch.
yeah, playing catch? Are you working on
Right.
your slider, or what have you, and all of that? Um, and at the same time, his dad's taking his sister to this place.
Music. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tony, you see a young Tony like working and figuring it out, hiding in the trunk.
And it goes to the way that they're raised. Looking at young Tony versus Anthony Jr. Because yeah, little Tony was quick.
Mm-hmm.
Smart enough to know to get in the trunk and to hold it down so no one would know that he was in the trunk. And then, I mean, this kid is 9 years old at the time. He's taking multiple buses by himself to follow his father, to see what him and Janice are doing. But, AJ is, 13 now, and he's just now finding out, and I mean, even going as far at the dinner table, when Olivia says, I practically lived at that school. Uh, you know, uh, Tony stole a car when he was 10 years old, could barely see over the steering wheel. And Anthony's like, wait, like, wow, you stole a car. Like, that's crazy. And then when Tony says, that's not what we do, we are held responsible for our consequences, or something like that, you
Right.
know, AJ says, yeah, right. Because now he's starting to, we'll say, he's eating the apple, Meadow offered him the apple to completely ruin his life with regards to what he thought his family was. And now that he's eaten the apple, now he can't take it back. He's in there now.
But I found it fascinating. She's like, I was always down at that school. He was always, in this, in that, and the other. You have riots
Right.
adjacent to your neighborhood, and he's telling you, I'm going to the CYO and all that. And you're not saying, I'm going with you, or no, you're staying
No,
here. There's no
she
way you're
said,
going out.
take a bat.
Take a bat. That's what she
Take
said.
a bat was her her advice for her son going out while riots are going on, man. I mean, it's I can't even say it goes to a different time, but I mean, it really does go to a different time, man. I mean, this isn't, a over dramatic. There's a word. I just can't think of what
like
it
a
is.
like a
Dramatization.
dramatization. Yeah.
Yes, it's not an over dramatization of parenting back during that time. I mean, what Livia was doing, I think, is realistic for the time.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But again, this is also the woman who now we're seeing the interaction between her and her husband in flashbacks.
Right.
Who now he's a saint. The man was a saint.
Right.
Yeah.
But you
Uh,
recognize why that is, right? Like I feel like she's doing that, and now we're in the episode in Down Neck. AJ now has punishment for for what he did. So now he has to go see Livy, and I know we haven't got to that part in the weekly,
right.
so I'm not going to say anything. But just looking at Livy, I feel like she says these things about Tony's father because he's gone, and I
Hmm.
think she is hoping that people will do the same for her because you've seen how they interact with each other. She knows what he was doing,
Yeah.
so she was fully aware. But for her to continually call him a saint, she's not going to point out the negative stuff because it's no good in it. He's gone, and I'm thinking that she wants people to do the same for her because she said, I wish God would take me now. She said that, she's
Right.
like already.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings up you bring up a good point. Um, During that, AJ, he did this. He's in trouble. They're outlining. There's no computer. There's no video games. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. You're gonna go see your grand. You're gonna take your bike. You're gonna go see your grandmother. So at the time, you think of all this thing is kind of like a throwaway line. All
Right.
right. Then AJ overhears his parents talking about Tony's psychiatrist and innocently tells his grandmother because he does show up. He does take his bike. He goes down and sees his grandmother, who assumes that Tony is discussing her with the psychiatrist. And at
Right.
first she's like, "No, you're lying." And AJ's
A
like, "I'm not what?"
psychiatrist?
Yeah,
You're lying. Nuh-uh. You're lying. Nuh-uh. A psychiatrist? Yeah, I overheard it. You're lying. Nuh-uh. That just goes on. And I
oh
love
no,
I love that interaction because that right there, shouts to the writing. That was genuine.
mm-hmm.
That was a kid understanding what he understands as a kid. And the way that the conversation came up is because AJ was explaining to his grandmother what they did to him. They sent him to a shrink to do tests,
Yeah,
and he was explaining that to her. And she says, a psychiatrist. And he's like, yeah. And then she makes a very off color remark.
right.
And he says, well, yeah, that goes. And she was like, your father? Yeah. A psychiatrist? Yeah. You're
You're
lying.
lying.
I mean,
Yeah,
and then he's like, no, I mean, that is just, it's authentic. Like, I really liked that exchange between those two.
and later on, I don't think it's this episode. I think it's a couple episodes down when they go to the cemetery and he's running around. That's a what is a graveyard dog or a cemetery
It's a
dog? That
graveyard dog. He's going to bite your face clean off.
and he's like, "Why shouldn't you breathe in a cemetery?" And she's like, "What are you talking?" Even Junior's like, "He's telling it
It's a
a
joke.
joke. It's a
It's
joke."
a joke. Just answer the question. Because you'll make the dead people jealous. Oh. Oh.
But their interactions are just fantastic, and I think they saw how it worked the first time. They're like, "We've got to write more of this in."
We gotta do more of this. This is too awesome.
And again, I take the summaries from Wikipedia just to give us a through line. And a lot of times they'll have a character's first appearance there, and I usually don't do that because they have all that. But I do have first appearances for this. This is our first official appearance of Johnny Soprano, Tony's father,
Yeah.
Janice Soprano, Tony's older sister, and Barbara Soprano, Tony's younger sister, who appears as an infant in flashbacks. Emily Vanderwolf of the AV Club retrospectively praised Down Neck as an unusually focused episode. It rarely deviates from its central thesis about fathers and mothers and their sons. She considered the flashbacks to be nicely constructed and handily paralleled with Tony fears that his kid will find out what he does for a living. Alan Sepinwall praised Gandolfini's acting and also stated in reference to the scene where AJ tells Olivia of Tony's therapy sessions that the episode's two plots make a great comic combination because AJ is so oblivious that he not only doesn't realize that he's telling Olivia, but is invulnerable to her usual emotional manipulations. It doesn't work on him.
Not at all.
Once Olivia decides that Tony goes to a psychiatrist to complain about her, she starts up the waterworks and loud self-pity, and AJ couldn't possibly be less interested in
Can
or
I have
even
that pen?
aware of the display. It's priceless. Oh, yes. So I forgot one major point at the end. She is poised to pass on this information to Junior, but Tony comes in before she can do so.
You know, planting seeds.
Yeah.
Just in the episodes that we've seen, there is tension between Junior and Tony. Even though they made Junior the boss, there's still tension there. This information cannot prove beneficial for Tony because loose lips sink ships. That's what they believe in this family. You know, if you'll talk to a shrink, what won't you say?
Right.
So yeah, it's AJ didn't know what he was doing, and but Lydia does.
Mm-hmm.
Livia is fully aware of what she's doing, and the fact that she's willing and so hungry to pass that information along, it says a lot about her, man. It says a lot about her.
You are right about that. Two things that I did find interesting. One, Michael B. Jordan is in this episode. He is one of the earliest roles, playing one of the Rydland kids who chases young Tony Soprano after he gets off the bus. It's Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, I went back and looked, and it is most definitely him. And I looked up his IMDb page. This is either his first or his second credit. He did an episode of the sitcom Cosby on CBS right around the same time.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice, and
So
he got his first major role in The Wire, also on HBO after that.
right.
So, but I did not know he was. That's all right.
So a little Easter egg. Yeah, you can like if you're not looking for him, you totally can't do it. But when you go back, you're like, oh my God, that is him. And Lorraine Senna Ferrara directed this episode. The only woman to have ever directed an episode of The Sopranos directed this episode.
Nice.
Yeah. So that sets us up for The Legend of Tennessee Multisanti.
Yeah.
A lot
Um,
goes down in this episode.
big episode. Big
At,
episode.
at his daughter's wedding, Larry tells member of the DeMeo crime family that according to his source at the FBI, federal indictments will soon be handed down against the New Jersey mob. One by one, everybody then leaves the wedding. They say their goodbye to the tearful bride. She's breaking down and leave early. Tony and Carmela swiftly collect cash and guns from different parts of their house. Neto and AJ are watching. Tony hides it all in Livia's room at Green Grove. And it was like an act of Congress to get her to go. Ma, come on, I'm going to take you out. We're going out.
Oh,
I don't want to go.
I don't want to go out.
Is there something,
Hiding from that
Tony?
damn activities instructor.
Oh,
So with this one, The Legend of Tennessee Multisanti, uh, a major part for me with the intro. I mean, obviously, we get to see the Italian wedding.
Right,
If you've seen anything, mob-ish, there's usually envelopes, gifts being given. Obviously, after the conversation, gifts are being taken back. So, I mean, she's definitely in her feelings, and I definitely could understand. I mean, I'm like, I think she's crying more that they took their stuff back than the fact that they were leaving. But
right.
the dynamic of the family is starting to be shown here. Because so you've got all the capos congregated, getting that information from Larry, and everyone is obviously looking at Tony for the quarterback. You know, but he's smart enough, to point the spotlight at Uncle June, just while it's there, and then whenever Uncle June leaves, then he gives his marching orders. But I mean, it's just seeing that Uncle June wasn't on it. He wasn't ready for the information that was being given, and I think that's why they were looking to Tony. But with what we know now, that the information that Olivia has, this is only going to make the situation more combustible.
And just a quick aside, they take Livia to the wedding. She's going through the thing. What did she say to Larry?
Do you still are you still do you still have that girlfriend? Something like that, like something horrible. Like she put
Right.
all his business on Front Street
All of it.
in front of his wife,
Yes.
and all the guests. Like Livia has zero flex, man. She is not cool at all. She's gonna say what she says, and damn you if you got a problem with it.
Right. But Tony's house is searched by Agent Harris. And of course, they don't find anything. There's nothing there. They've already cleared out. Having dinner after the search, Tony explains to his children that Italians and Italian Americans are not given the respect they deserve. At the same time, a parallel to this is Dr. Melfi. At a dinner with her family, and her ex-husband says a few careless words, and her ex-husband deduces that one of her patients is a mobster. He urges her to drop that patient who he says is evil, and there will come a time when she will not be able to look the other way. He deplores the way that a few thousand gangsters have tarnished the good name of millions of Italian Americans. He is all about Italian American pride.
Big time fact.
Tony has told Dr. Melfi that he might go on vacation and have to miss a session. She understands what he means. He misses one, and the next time they meet, she tells him that, as previously agreed, she will still charge him for it. Angry, likening her to a call girl, he scatters bills on the floor and leaves, just straight up. If you're all about the money, here you go.
So the interesting part about the dinners, I say dinners, is because you have two very proud Italians saying that Italians aren't given a fair shake.
Mm-hmm.
Hilariously, though, one of those Italian men is a part of what the other one is deeming the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Milfy's ex-husband is saying essentially that Tony is the problem, but yet they're having the exact same conversation at different dinner tables about the plight of the Italian man. Like I think that's interesting. Because obviously I don't think Tony sees himself as a problem. He sees himself as a victim more than anything. So those parallels there, were pretty interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm thinking that for a minute they put us in Dr. Melfi's shoes, who is seeing both sides of this because she's hearing from Tony one side, and she's hearing from, of course, her ex-husband and her family and all of that. Her son uh, says a word that he didn't know was derogatory towards his
Right.
own, his own heritage, and they explain it to him, and she's sitting there, and we're seeing it from her perspective. She's walking that very fine line, like on both sides. In Nightmare, Christopher is haunted by Emil Kohler, the first person he killed. He enlists Georgie to help dig the body up and relocate it. He's struggling to write a mafia movie screenplay. The characters have no arc, and he feels there's no arc in his own life. He shoots a shop clerk in the foot for making him wait too long. Tony is furious, but then tries to question him about his feelings, and the conversation ends quietly. Christopher is envious and resentful that he is not listed as one of those being investigated by the FBI. And when his name does appear in a newspaper, he's thrilled and gets all the copies.
All of them. Christopher in this episode is huge. I think this episode is doing a lot to show some of the just vulnerability of that young man. You spoke to Tony, getting upset with him, and I'll say something to that. Thinking about the last episode that we had of the father and son, I feel like Tony looks at Christopher like a son.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at the stuff that Christopher went through in this episode, he's trying to write the screenplay. He's having a hard time with the computer, and he's cursing that computer all the way out, like all the way out. And Adriana helps him, and you can tell he's excited. He really is into the movies. But then he gets the news, that Brandon Filoni is considered an associate in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't mention him at all. So yeah, he definitely gets in his feels there. That makes him act out. And when told by Tony to go, and get some pastries for the guys, he shoots that guy in the leg. And the funny thing, after he shoots the guy in the leg, as he's walking out, and the guy yells, "You shot me in the leg," Christopher says, "It happens."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are a fan like I am and you've seen Goodfellas, you know that Christopher Moltisanti played Spider
Mm-hmm.
in Goodfellas, and he was shot in the foot by Joe
In the
Pesci's
foot.
character.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that line was on purpose. It happens because yeah, making reference to Goodfellas. I thought that was pretty funny.
Absolutely. Um, I do have some notes from this episode, but let's finish previous arc from, speaking of arcs from the previous episode. Olivia tells Junior that Tony is seeing a psychiatrist, but then adds, "I don't want there to be any repercussions." So,
Because she recognizes her power.
yeah. So, when describing a character with a story arc to Paulie, Christopher mentions Richard Kimball from The Fugitive and Keanu Reeves' character in The Devil's Advocate. And Big Pussy says that Noah had an arc. Um, this is who Christopher is going to for advice about, like, I'm being haunted. And they're like, yeah, that happens. Get better as you go along and kill more people. Richard, I want to say his last name is Romanus, plays Dr. Melfi's ex-husband, Richard LaPena. And he tells Dr. Melfi, played by Lorraine Bracco, that American culture has given Italian Americans a bad name, citing The Godfather and Goodfellas as examples. Bracco co-starred in Goodfellas, and Romanus co-starred in another Martin Scorsese film, Mean Streets. So this is all like tongue-in-cheek references to Martin Scorsese and his films left and right in the series and in this episode. Christopher's explanation of his sense of malaise to Paulie prompts Paulie to share, The writer with the bullfights blew his head off. Pauly is referring to Ernest Hemingway, who committed suicide. Hemingway wrote both nonfiction and fiction about bullfighting. And then Christopher talks about going into Blockbuster and the smell of Blockbuster
Smell of
and
the popcorn.
how he loves it. And then it also mentions that Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas shoots a character played by Michael Imperioli in the foot, who then shoots someone in the foot in this episode.
It
It
happens.
also, yep, it talks about when Tony explains the importance of Italians to his children, several Italian figures are mentioned: Michelangelo, Antonio Meucci. When AJ mentions that Alexander Graham Bell, he didn't know he was Italian. The founder of the Bank of America, Francis Albert, Sacco Vanzetti, John Cabot, Mother Cabrini, and Meadow comments that Lucky Luciani invented the mafia by organizing the five families.
The five families. Yep.
In a retrospective review, Emily Vanderwolf of the AV Club was positive, while she opined that the story with Melfi's family has a tendency to stop the show dead in its tracks, and that no one watching really cares what Melfi's ex-husband thinks. Vanderwolf listed Christopher's conversations with Paulie and Tony among her favorite scenes from the entirety of The Soprano, and argued that the series showed that it had certain affection for these characters, these scumbags. Alan Sepinwall also praised the scene between Christopher and Paulie as remarkable, as it illustrates the folly of trying to model your life on your favorite movie and TV characters. But wrote that the dialogue in the scenes with Melfi's family about the popular image of Italian Americans grows a little didactic at times. So,
Like I say, I think it was there just to show the fact that the conversation is being shared by two very different families. Because I see what they're saying. I mean, no one really does care what's going on in Dr. Milky's life unless it has something to do with Tony affecting it.
right.
But but when you have a person saying that the mob is the problem for how Italian Americans are being depicted in the media, and then you have a mob guy saying a similar argument without the mob being the problem, I think that it's supposed to create some some complexity in watching it. It's like you're supposed to be a little conflicted, with how you look at Tony and and how you look at his family and how you look at how he parents and things like that. And I think that's what that dialogue was for. Because you're right, we don't care. We don't care.
But it also sets up perfectly the next two episodes. Things are starting to it's like dominoes. They're starting to fall in place a lot faster. And without this setup, you don't get the payoff later on. So let's go to a very interesting episode, Boca.
Okay.
Junior goes to Boca Raton, Florida, taking along his longtime girlfriend, Bobby Sanfilippo.
That
In
sounds about
bed,
right.
she playfully tells him, "When you kiss me down there, you're like a great artist." He stresses that she must never speak about this to anyone. You never talk about that. And reluctantly explains that his associate think that if you suck pussy, it's a sign of weakness. You will suck anything. And I believe is really what he says.
That's exactly what he said. It's hilarious.
But we have a problem. He says this and she agrees, but she's already talked about her sex
Yep.
life
Folks know.
with a woman at her nail salon. Word reaches Carmela, who then tells Tony. While playing golf with Junior, Tony just straight up just becomes petty. He becomes petty. Tony makes vulgar, oblique jokes about it. Junior understands, though, and begins to think of killing him. Enraged, he fires Bobby from her job and breaks up with her.
So
Now,
go ahead.
I like, this is, of course, this is not for kids. If you have kids watching this, folks, you need to stop because we've been talking about The Sopranos.
Come on now.
I have also heard this at points in my life, and I just look at the people like, "Are you insane?" Now, I don't go around talking about my sex life and never really have. If somebody asked me something, now, or do you like this? Yeah, I might answer them, I might not.
Right.
But if it comes up, yes. And who cares? But this is out there. I'm like, maybe it's just an outdated way of thinking.
Oh, it's got to be extremely outdated, man. I don't get it. I mean, which is crazy because porn has been around forever, and cats been throwing mouth in porn for a long time. But I I don't know. It's somebody who's had a fairly controversial show. I don't mind being honest. But
Right.
in this universe, you know, if you throw mouth, you throwing it everywhere. So they do, and it's funny. I don't know necessarily that Tony would have came at Junior the way he did if Junior hadn't they they egg each other on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tony. He didn't have what it take to be a varsity athlete. What? You say that Tony gets pissed off. So now, he's talking about eating sushi and stuff like that, and he never actually calls him out, but Junior knows what he's referencing, and he
Right.
gets in his feelings because he's the new boss. He needs respect, especially from Tony. So yeah, that that was bad all around. And Carmella knew what would happen if she told Tony, but she told him anyway because I don't necessarily know that she cared for Junior that much.
No. And it's like she said, she's like, I could say some stuff about you, and he's like, it stays here. She's like, don't worry, it was like the once a year that it
The one time a year that it happens, I will stop myself from saying anything. Like that's hilarious.
Oh, but that to me, even though it's called Boca, and that's like the through thread of all this, the main plot of this show is Tony, Silvio, and Artie invite Meadows' soccer coach Dan Hauser to have drinks at the Bada Bing after a victory. They all have daughters in the team and are enthusiastic supporters. They are loving this coach and
Right.
what he can do for this team. When they read in the newspaper that Hauser is moving to another coaching job, they try to convince him to stay. Paulie delivers a 50-inch television to
We're not
Hauser's
taking it.
house and insists that he takes it. Christopher keeps the coach's dog captive in his car, and then as an animal lover, he returns it. The dog's upstairs. I'm an animal lover.
Sure, golden retriever. It's in my back seat. He just knew his dog was upstairs. He knew his dog was upstairs. Like the dog is upstairs. His wife is like, honey, the dog is upstairs. Chris was like, nah.
It's in my back seat.
In my back seat.
Golden retriever.
Yep. Gotta be careful with these dogs, man.
Because as we find out later on in the episode, you don't really shouldn't care about the coach as a person at all. But in that moment, I felt for him because he just knew that dog was upstairs.
He knew that dog was upstairs. I'm like, bro, they broke into your house, man. I'm like, come on.
Because he's like, I don't need another dog. My dog.
Right. Hey, man, you got a dog? Wait, yeah, upstairs. No. Honey, what's wrong, man? Says he got a dog in his back seat. No, our dog's upstairs. Wait.
Even though now he knows what's going on, the look on his face when he's like, yeah, that's him.
That's my dog. man really had my dog in his backseat. Don't know the
Christopher's
man's
an animal
name.
lover.
Don't know his name. He is an animal lover. That is it.
So Tony thinks he's doing a good thing. He's getting this. This man is going to stay, and he tells Meadow, and it's like you flip the switch, and all of a sudden Meadow is like,
So
I
she's
don't
hot.
care. Yeah.
Yeah.
She appears
She
to be
quit.
ungrateful and upset. Yeah, she's like, yeah. So she tells him Hauser has been having sex with one of the girls
Allie.
who has been like, I'm not leaving my wife. And so she makes an attempt on her life.
Right.
Tony resolves that Hauser will never do that again. Dr. Melfi asks him, why do you think punishing the man falls on you? Artie tries to show him that he is not acting for justice, only for vengeance, for his own satisfaction. So Tony throws Artie out, but stays alone drinking, wondering what to do. Later on, he calls the police and Hauser is arrested. Tony goes home staggering drunk. He tells Carmela that he didn't hurt nobody as Meadow watches from the staircase. Because Meadow, like, she was just for sure. And I think it's fascinating to look at this episode versus a few episodes before the college episode.
College episode.
Within, we hear what the guy had done and we hear why Tony has got to kill this guy.
Right.
Here, I don't think anybody would blame Tony for taking the guy out. And everybody knows that he could do it. And instead, Tony does the lawful thing. I'm not going to say the right thing. He does the lawful thing and calls the police, and the man is arrested.
Well, and it it goes to show that Dr. Melfi again has an effect on Tony, because I think her posing that question played into his decision. I think Anthony Jr. and what he does and doesn't know, because we left out a part of the conversation on Down Neck where Tony and Anthony Jr. actually did have a conversation. And Anthony Jr. told Tony, hey, I went on a website and I saw Uncle Jackie and stuff like that. So, that, and then again, Meadows' conversation, like you said, on college. So you've got all these three things, playing in, and there's a conversation with Carmela in there as well, So, and then yeah, Artie Bucco being a little fly, he's flip flopping back and forth. First he loves the guy, and then they found out that what he did before Artie did. So Artie's coming over there telling them they need to take the TV back because this coach won't be bribed. And then they're like, no, well, your coach friend is a bad guy. So then Artie's like, oh, I'll kill him myself. And then after a conversation with Charmaine, then Artie comes back talking about, no, you can't do it. Whatever you're going to do, don't do it. And that's when Tony kicks him out because Artie's flip flopping all over the place. But it, they'll say that therapy doesn't work on the mob types, but clearly it does because I didn't hurt nobody. And while Meadow wasn't privy to what Tony was doing while she was at the school, she did get to see the aftermath of, Tony drinking and then the coach being arrested, because I believe after having that conversation with Tony and him telling her a little bit of what he does, I think she expected him to kill that guy. I think she fully expected it. So for her to see that, I think now it's going to even further complicate, how she views her father, because I mean, her dad is her dad. She had her views about him being in the mafia, but now
Mm-hmm.
he's not just a killer. Now he's a killer with a conscience. So that's yeah.
Right. And so some of the notes on this, Junior mentions the Escobedo brothers to Mikey when explaining how it's possible for a psychiatrist to testify against a patient.
Right.
This is in reference to the Menendez
The
brothers
Mendez brothers.
in Beverly Hills, who killed their parents and were later turned into the police by their psychologist, Jerome Ozell. It's also a possible reference to the Escobedo versus Illinois, the United States Supreme Court case holding that criminal suspects have the right to counsel during police interrogations under the Sixth Amendment. But he slips that name in there, but he's talking about the Menendez brothers. But what Junior doesn't realize is what Dr. Melfi told Tony in the first episode. We have patient doctor confidentiality, except if you're talking about crimes and stuff, I am law bound to
Bound by
report you
law.
to the
Right.
yes, which is what Dr. Ozell did in the Menendez brothers case.
Well, I mean, in that case, he was a little bit more shady with his, but nonetheless,
Right.
since you're dropping those references based on those notes, I'll go ahead and let you know if anybody is a big fan of Edie Falco as Carmela, you would definitely love her in her depiction of the lawyer who represented the Menendez brothers. They did that biopic on them several years ago. Like 6 episodes. It's a miniseries.
Yeah.
But she did a phenomenal job playing that lawyer. So if you like Edie, she does that work. Just putting that out there.
It's Leslie Abramson.
Leslie Abrams. There you go.
It's who she playing. And you're right. The doctor is a sketchy character. Having read some up on that, but that's a sketchy case. That is a absolutely a sketchy case and two sketchy brothers. But we're gonna focus on this. Junior hitting Bobby in her face with a pie when they break up was used as an homage to The Public Enemy, where the main character does the same to his girlfriend with the cut in half grapefruit when he says he is leaving her. David Chase has cited The Public Enemy as an enormous influence of his, so that's why they did that. And over dinner, while discussing Allie's suicide attempt, Tony, under influence of what Dr. Melfi told him previously, how self-inflicted shallow cuts to the wrist are actually a cry for help, says how she didn't really want to kill herself. It wasn't like friggin' Cobain. It was just a little suicidal gesture. Discussing, of course, Kurt Cobain, who killed himself, committed suicide with a shotgun at the age of 27. So all leading up to episode 10, a hit is a hit.
It's a hit.
Paulie, Chris, and Pussy rob and kill a Colombian drug dealer, and they get a huge amount of cash. As Tony says, a once-in-a-lifetime score. Chris and Adriana get to know Massive Genius, a rich gangster rapper, and Chris arranges a sit-down for him with Hesh. Massive says he's acting on behalf of the mother of a deceased black singer whose royalties Hesh stole, and now claims $400,000 is owed to her. Hesh refuses, and later counterclaims there's an unauthorized sampling by Massive's record label of a song that Hesh's label still controls. Massive says he will call his lawyers. When the conversation is over, Tony and his crew jeer at this modern-day gangster who goes through the law. And this is big time. I heard it from, not even, like second or third hand, I heard this. When Ellen DeGeneres' show started, she comes out, she was dancing and all that. I say this as her show is ending this year. Massively popular, her dancing to the song, so they kept it in there. Meanwhile, the group that controls music royalties and stuff, they say they really don't give you a grace period. I think if she had danced like 3 seconds to something one time, I don't think they would have done it. But when they see she's doing this every day, they clocked it for a year and then sent her a bill. But now her dancing has, that was the thing. I think she still does it. I've seen like one whole episode of Ellen's show. And I was in a doctor's office. But that was the thing, and Ellen was popular for years. Now she can't stop dancing. So they wrote a check. to the tune of millions, is what I heard. Royalty things are extremely like they because what they say is if you really want to sample it, the agreement is very favorable to both
Okay.
sides. Like it's cheaper to just ask, permission
Then
to
to
do
take
it
it.
than to
Gotcha.
ask for forgiveness later on because it's going to cost you more for forgiveness later on. So that is a huge thing in music. I do know that.
I get it. I get it.
So Adriana proposes that she should pursue a career as a music producer and that Massive can help Chris. So Christopher has this money from this score, agrees to finance a demo for the band Visiting Day, whose singer Richie Santini is Adriana's ex-boyfriend. The demo recording progresses slowly and badly, and eventually Chris smashes Richie's guitar over his back and tells him, why doesn't he go get high?
Go do some drugs. Go do the drugs.
Chris has told
Blast off.
experts that the band is not good and realizes that Massive is helping them only because of his interest in Adriana. When he tells her this, she accuses him of trying to hold her back and storms out. So a lot of people are having money difficulties. Carmela wonders whether she and the children will be all right if anything happens to Tony. He smiles enigmatically. A friend introduces her to the stock market and gives her a tip. She buys and profits. Tony would like to mix with Medigans, Americans not of Italian descent. After some hesitation, he accepts an invitation from Dr. Cusimano to play a round of golf at his country club. But the other golfers pester him and embarrass him with questions about crime and criminals. As he tells Dr. Melfi, he felt like he was being used for somebody else's entertainment, like a dancing bear.
That story that he gave was so it was so real,
Mm-hmm.
and it showed maturity on his part because he's sitting there like he's talking about this kid and he's got a cleft palate, so he talks a little bit weird. And he would always perform because he just wanted to be with the crew.
Mm-hmm.
But later found out that he would go home and cry every day. And Tony said, I never understood it until today. And I mean, I honestly, I didn't necessarily feel bad for Tony because obviously at this point, Tony's made some decisions that I don't necessarily agree with. But what I do feel is, I feel empathy for Tony because if you've ever been the biggest person in the room, some of the conversations that happen, you know, so I get it, feeling like the dancing bear, it sucks. But from it, he was able to get Kuz back, so yeah.
Can you hold something for me?
What is it? Oh, don't worry about it. I'll come get it in a month or two, sooner or later. No specifics. No specifics, but yeah, he got
And
it.
they're just staring at that package, and the wife goes,
Just
and he's
staring
like, no,
at it.
no.
Don't you open it.
You are absolutely right, though, now that I think about it. This might be apocryphal, but I always heard that Chris Farley always said that he was acutely aware that when people came to see him, it was, I came to see the fat guy fall down. And I think that was Tony in that. And I was looking for that. I couldn't remember if it was, I think it's this episode. It's either this one or the two episodes before. Dr. Melfi actually comes to dinner
At the
next door
Kuzmanos, yeah, that was this episode.
and excuses herself, and she's looking next door and hears noises. She can't figure it out. Like she can't see anything and stuff like that. She mentions it to Tony, and he's like, I
I
don't
don't know
know
what
what
you're
you're
talking
talking.
about.
And then we find out that it's actually him lifting weights
Right.
and making the noises.
Yeah, he's doing that yelling.
and it's like a good parallel with the kid with the cleft palate going home and crying. That's his version of it. Um, and also, he's like, "Hey, man, maybe I can get you on as a member of this club." And then later on, what happens? The books are closed to new
Books
members,
are closed. Hey,
and
hey,
you're
hey,
like,
and the books are really closed.
"The
No, no
books
fooling.
are." They make that clear. Christopher, like, no, no, no. That's the books are closed. There's no more made men, and there's no more country club because they're not dying off.
And it's crazy because Coos knew what he was doing. You know, he dangled that carrot of membership to get Tony to come out because his friends knew that he lived next door to him or whatever, based on the conversation that they had at the dinner. Um, Again, don't feel sorry for Tony, but I have empathy for him because he allowed himself to get excited for it. Like I think that Tony purposely didn't try to interact with people like that because he always knew that they were going to look at him a certain kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So when he finally allowed himself to be vulnerable enough to go and have a good time, play golf, with his neighbor, they're asking him to shine. And so yeah, not getting the opportunity to join the club, I think that attacked him. That definitely hurt him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Because they're asking him, "You ever been to Capone's place? Do you know Gotti?"
And the story at the end, I think, I think they were over him at that point. Whenever he talks about the bungalow truck or whatever that Gotti bought, and he let him ring the bell or whatever. Man, I think at that point they knew he was blowing smoke, and I think that's when it was over because you could see the faces that they were making. They were tuned out. They wanted
Right.
some killing. They didn't
Right.
want the bungalow bar.
You're absolutely right. Oh goodness. So overall, what do we think of this episode? These
As
four.
we now know that we're what episode 10. We're getting close. In our next set, we're going to be seeing the finale of this first season.
Right.
Um, and what I'm seeing is it's setting for an explosion. I mean, we got the indictments to worry about. Who's all going to be included in those? Um, you know, when is the ball going to drop with regards to Junior's knowledge of Tony and the therapist? It's those are the two major things right there. With regards to the family, you know, is Carmela really getting close to being fed up? Meadow to me in these last couple episodes that we saw came off more like an adult than
Oh yeah.
than 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 her parents. And like, so there's that one dinner conversation that they're you know Liv is sharing that stuff about Tony. Junior is also sharing stories about Tony. Tony is saying, "I don't want that kind of conversation at this house." Everybody is yelling. Meadow is the one person sitting there, with some composure about herself. And when Anthony Jr. makes that comment, she's correcting him like, "Yo, fix that." Like we've seen her immaturity early.
Right.
And I feel like in these last couple episodes, we don't get a lot from her. What went down with Allie matured her up a little bit. So in this last episode, a hit is just a hit, and Carmela's been tripping on money. She says that, somebody's got to look after this family. But oh, let's go and let's get manicures and pedicures and let's have a spa day. Let's do that thing. And their relationship is starting to mend. And again, that is just a sign of maturity. So, shouts to Meadow, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're right about that. We saw both of the children in different lights in this. You know, AJ is still really wants to be the kid. I think he's like resisting.
Right.
He doesn't want to mature. He wants to look at this kid. I mean, my dad is a hero. Remember
Yep.
episode 2? My dad is a hero.
My dad's a hero.
Right. And oblivious in a good way, you know, the cemetery running all around, like, you
Right.
know, he's like, whatever, grandma. And, you know, she tries to manipulate him with the tears and he just,
He wants the pair.
yeah, yeah. And then Meadow, the stuff with Allie really did mature her a lot. I think the college trip
Mm-hmm.
and her having that conversation with her dad,
True.
him going halfway in,
Mm-hmm.
but then her noticing the shoes and all of
The
that,
blood on his hands. Yeah.
and his explanation, and she's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And then not only what happened with Allie, her being one of the ones that found Allie. You know, I've got to go find, if she's smoking, she owes me money. You know, that's the teenage part, and then all of a
Right.
sudden you're growing up real fast. Yeah, she
Real fast.
is absolutely growing up real fast, and I'll just discuss it on air. I think we are doing good to have like 4 episodes at a time.
Okay.
So I think we're going to keep that. So that means our next episode for the audience is the last 3 episodes of season 1, and we'll also get the pick up the first episode of season 2. So
Right.
we'll get whatever happens, the explode, you know, because they're not just going to like, oh, we're going on a picnic on the last episode and everything's going to be fine. You know, they're going to leave us on something, and then we'll pick
Cliffhangers,
up.
baby.
Yeah,
Cliffhangers.
we'll pick up that. So the next time, folks, that we're together, we'll discuss the last 3 episodes of season 1 and the first episode of season 2. So if you, and I know people are watching along with us, or they're watching and then picking us up as they finish. So they're going on their own speed. But I have been told that people are like, oh, I always wanted to get into this. This is a good time. Or I could never watch The Sopranos. It's too violent for me. Like, okay.
Well, watch us, and we'll talk about it in a way that we'll give you the warm and fuzzies.
There you go. So,
Hit that subscribe and comment below. Ooh.
yes, share and reminisce with people you don't know.
Yes.
So, plug away, my good man. Anything you got?
Absolutely. I got a list of things to plug. But first off, again, shouts out to you and thank you again for inviting me to take this journey with you. There's nothing like being able to talk about big pussy and they can't blurt it out because it's a person's name. So
Absolutely right.
so yeah, if
And
you wanna go ahead.
none of my videos have ever been for children. I always say, no, this is not for children. Just in case something happens, no, this is not for children.
Not for children, not at all. If you want to hear more from me, thank you for that. That lets me know that I'm doing something halfway right. I can be found in the podcasting world on the Yeah I'm Hybro podcast. We are in season 2, released every Sunday, and just in. There's going to be 6 bonus episodes of the Tokyo Smoke Show coming, 1 episode a month over the next 6 months. So
Wow.
really great stuff in a really great space right now, man. So thankful to Joey for helping me continue to be my, awesome self, just adding the accoutrement that he does, So thanks for that, my guy. I appreciate you. And thank you all again for listening, man. Comment below. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. The Joey Harris Show episode every single Sunday drops. In fact, I just remembered I've got to put up one that will come out for tomorrow. I've got it. I just have not put it up yet. So um, there is that. New episodes of on YouTube every Wednesday. This will come up on this Wednesday, but I'm here every Wednesday. It's either me with TJ or it's me talking about different things from my life. My wrestling podcast, Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, every Thursday, wherever you get your podcast. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok at the
TikTok.
Joey Harris. I had something go minimal viral this past week. It's got almost 50,000 plays.
Oh,
I tell just a dumb joke that I found on the internet. And folks, I'm not going to comment on it anymore here. Go to TikTok at the Joey Harris. I'm easy to find. Look at the video of mine that has the most plays. Watch it. It's about a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes at the most, because the maximum is 3 minutes. Then go read the comment section. And you get a microcosm of what is going on the internet today. People dissect this joke like I told a joke that would cure cancer. And they're like, you get, I don't get it, or obviously you should have done this. Why did you say this? Folks, that's not even the main point of the joke. It's a stupid, like
right.
a 90-second joke. It literally is. And it's got almost 50,000 views, you know. I pour my heart and soul into something. 5 people see it and 4 like it, you know.
Bro, these steps, man. These steps. Look at you. TikToking and stuff. Man, hey, come on, baby. Get it. Get it.
Yeah, but TJ, thank you once again. We will see each other in a couple of weeks where we will discuss the end of season 1 and the start of season 2 and all the shenanigans that the Sopranos
Bang, bang.
group has come up. I will, final thing before I go, I will say this group of episodes, nothing has been spoiled for me for the future. I was just looking up, like, you know, in the past it would be like, oh, let me look up when college was done, and it's like that also happens when you know, a big
right.
and I'm like, so thankfully I've been trying to avoid that, and it's hard to do that for something that's been off the air for 15 years.
Big time facts.
But I don't want to be spoiled any more than I have already. Like, I know there are like 4 or 5 things I know that are coming up that you couldn't avoid. But it used to be 4 things. Now it's a 5th thing that is. But I'm like, all right, I guess that makes sense. You know, I could kind of see where that was happening. But
I'm ready. And
anyway,
look, bro, can we acknowledge, for somebody who has seen this show as many times as I have, I am doing a phenomenal job of getting into these episodes without telling the juice. I want to tell all the juice.
I know you do.
I can't give up none of the juice.
My favorite thing, though, is when you discuss Olivia. Because you got her down pat. This is not, again, I know this is not the first time you've seen these episodes.
Right.
Her and AJ, that was my best
about.
part. No, you're lying.
A therapist? Uh-huh. No, you're lying. No. A therapist?
And I mean, and he's noticing the pear. Can I have that pear?
Can I have that pear? Love it. Love it. I love Olivia. I don't know what you're talking about. I love that. She's gangster. She's cutthroat.
That and your expression when you're talking about her when she was living on her own and the mushrooms or whatever catches on fire.
Wow. Wow.
Oh goodness.
Oh, God. Good times.
I'm saying this now though. We are going through this episode, folks, and this is like the overrun. This is like the after show, folks. I'm just gonna keep it going.
After party.
We're going back and we're doing the prequel movie after we finish this.
We have to. Oh,
we
yeah.
have to do it now.
We have to. We very much have to, because it will it's going to change how you look at some people, how they can do that, man, with a story that has been told already.
Is this your first time going through after seeing the prequel movie? And are you looking at people differently?
Yes.
Okay.
It changed, because what we find, this is just me and you talking. Obviously, you don't have to use any of this at this point, but what we find out in the show, you find out the truth in the movie, and it
Ah,
will change the way you look at a character. That
okay,
that that
okay,
true. That true. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I wasn't the hugest. I wasn't over the moon on the movie. I wasn't over the moon on it. You know, I'm a fan. I'm a completionist. I was going to watch it.
Hmm.
So the nostalgia of it was great. Nostalgia was batting 1,000. And after you've seen all of the season, you know, if you do like it like I like it, then yeah, for nostalgia's sake, you'll want to watch the movie. I feel like they had a great cast. Just something was missing.
I got
Um,
you.
but yeah, I look forward to chopping that up too. Same thing with whenever we do Breaking Bad. I'm hoping that we do El Camino also.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. We
yeah.
absolutely have to do Breaking Bad and El Camino. I also want to do The Wire.
Woo! 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 Boy, that's some good TV right there, baby.
Yeah,
That's some
yeah.
good TV right there, baby. Ooh, that's some good TV. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you want to clip that because that right there was really funny. The face that I made when you told me that, but yeah, that, yeah,
And I also want to like break out and do something that neither one of us have seen.
please,
So that
please,
we're both going into it like, what in the world is
please.
this? Yeah.
If there's a list of shows, um, I mean, I don't know what I would necessarily have to Google. But I can go if we can find a list of shows that we both can share. I can go through and check what I have and have not seen.
Yeah.
And then you doing the same thing, then we will be able to compare and go from there. But yeah, another great episode tonight, man. Awesome stuff, bro. I've I got a podcast to edit for a release in the morning.
All right. Bye everybody.